8. That is a heart rate. 8 beats in a minute inside a body that can weigh 300 kilograms, curled in a hole under the snow in the Alaskan interior. That animal has not eaten since October. It has not drunk water, has not urinated, has not passed a single bowel movement, and has not stood up. It breathes about once every 45 seconds, and between those breaths, its heart can go 20 seconds without beating at all. Run those numbers on a human, and you are describing a catastrophe in progress. 5 months like that, and a person's bones would be measurably thinner, the leg muscles wasted, the blood throwing clots, the kidneys leaving the body swimming in its own waste. You know exactly what that looks like, because we inflict a version of it every day in intensive care wards and on long space flights, and we spend fortunes fighting it.
The bear does not fight it. In April, it stands up, walks out of the den, and its skeleton is as strong as it was in the autumn. Its muscles still work. Its blood is clean. Cuts it fell asleep with have closed. On the way out the door, it switches off a metabolic state that, in a human, would be diagnosed as type 2 diabetes. We have been looking at this animal for 40,000 years, and we have only ever seen the mouth, the teeth, the claws, the standing silhouette. We built our oldest fears around the front end of a body whose real story is happening everywhere else. So, 100 facts about the bear, and about the part of it that never makes the poster. There are freezers full of bear blood in European and American laboratories, and the people who run them are not studying a predator. They are studying a medical problem that has already been solved. If you would rather know what an animal actually is than what it looks like on a warning sign, subscribe, because that is the entire job here.
The winter comes first, because everything else about this animal is shaped around surviving it.
Fact 1. A hibernating bear's heart rate falls from around 40 to 50 beats a minute in summer to between 8 and 19 in the den. Physiologist Oyvind Toyen at the University of Alaska Fairbanks recorded black bears dropping from 55 to 14. Fact 2. The stranger part is what does not fall. Publishing in Science in 2011, Toyen found the bears cut metabolism to about a quarter of the summer rate, while body temperature dropped by an average of only 5.5 degrees Celsius. Every other hibernator has to go cold to go slow. Bears uncoupled the two. Fact 3. A ground squirrel doing the same trick drops to near freezing and cannot move for hours after waking. A bear stays warm enough to get up and defend itself at once, paying for that readiness by burning fat all winter to hold the temperature. Fact 4. Breathing slows to roughly 1 breath every 45 seconds, and between breaths the heart nearly stops, then accelerates back toward a normal resting rhythm on the inhale. Toyen called it an extreme form of sinus arrhythmia. In a cardiology unit, that trace would set off alarms. Fact 5. You have probably been told bears are not true hibernators. That sat in textbooks for decades because hibernation was defined around rodents, using body temperature as the yardstick. Measure metabolism instead, and bears run the deepest sustained shutdown of any large mammal. Researchers now call them super hibernators.
Fact 6. They do it for 4 to 6 months, depending on latitude, and the whole time they neither eat, drink, urinate, nor defecate. There is no other mammal of that size doing anything remotely comparable.
Fact 7. Before the den comes hyperphagia, an eating disorder written into the calendar. Bears feed up to 20 hours a day and consume in the region of 20,000 calories, adding 1 to 2 kilograms of fat every 24 hours. Fact 8. Inside the den, they burn something like 4,000 calories a day, all of it from fat. A bear is running an engine on stored fuel with the tank sealed for half a year, and finishing the winter with fuel to spare. Fact 9. The digestive tract shuts down and forms a plug of hardened material that seals the lower intestine until spring. The playground rumor about this one is true. Fact 10. Blood flow to the skeletal muscle, especially the legs, can drop by 45% or more. Peripheral tissue perfusion falls below the level at which human tissue starts to die of oxygen starvation. The bear's tissue does not die. Fact 11. Mothers in open dens hold near normal body temperature and ingest their cubs' waste to keep the den clean. Hibernation for a female with newborns is a far lighter, more wakeful state than the one males get. Fact 12. Coming out is slower than going in. Toyon's bears took 2 to 3 weeks to return to a normal metabolic rate even after body temperature had already climbed back. The spring bear you see is still running at reduced power. Fact 13. Not all bears hibernate. Sun bears, sloth bears, and spectacled bears live in climates with no winter to sleep through and stay active year-round. Polar bears mostly do not either, apart from pregnant females. Fact 14. The instinct survives captivity. Bears rescued from concrete cages in Asia, animals that had never seen a forest, have gone into hibernation once sanctuaries gave them the right conditions. Everything I have just described is, in a hospital, a list of complications. That is precisely why this animal now has laboratories devoted to it. Fact 15. Immobilize a human and the skeleton starts dissolving. Bed rest and spaceflight strip bone at roughly 1 to 2% a month, and it does not fully come back. Disuse osteoporosis is why a long stay in a hospital bed can end a person's independence.
Fact 16. Bears lose no bone. Seth Donahue at Michigan Technological University spent years testing black bear skeletons and found bone mineral content maintained straight through hibernation, with formation and resorption staying balanced rather than tipping into loss.
Fact 17. It gets worse for us. Donahue found bear bone grows stronger and less porous with age, while ours does the opposite. A bear that has slept through 20 winters has better bones than a young one. Fact 18. A 2021 gene expression screen in Scientific Reports found the mechanism looks coordinated rather than accidental, with genes for bone resorption, osteoclast activity, and cell death all switched down together during hibernation.
Fact 19. Donahue's lab tried the obvious translation, treating bone-depleted rats with synthetic bear parathyroid hormone. It worked. Unfortunately, human parathyroid hormone worked too, which told them the bear's hormone is not the whole trick by itself.
Fact 20. Muscle should be the next thing to go, and barely does. Bears lose only around 10 to 15% of muscle protein and force-generating capacity across an entire winter. Fiber number and cross-sectional area come out close to unchanged.
Fact 21.
The reason is a piece of chemistry that sounds impossible. Urea, the nitrogen waste that would normally leave in urine, is instead passed into the gut, broken down by bacteria, and the nitrogen is rebuilt into amino acids and then into the bear's own body proteins. The animal is repairing its muscles out of its own waste. Fact 22. Which is why the kidneys can effectively stop. Blood work from 16 free-ranging brown bears showed creatinine climbing while urea fell, a divergence that in a human patient would mean something had gone badly wrong. In the bear it means the recycling loop is running. Fact 23. Nephrologists have published papers arguing that whatever bears are doing could point toward new treatments for kidney failure. That is, a dialysis specialist looking to a wild animal for ideas. Fact 24. Now the blood. Lie a healthy person down long enough and clots form in the deep veins, which is why venous thromboembolism kills tens of thousands a year. A bear lies motionless for 6 months and does not clot.
Fact 25. In 2023, a team led by Manuela Thienel published the answer in Science after sampling free-ranging brown bears in Sweden in both winter and summer. One protein on the surface of blood platelets, heat shock protein 47, drops 55-fold during hibernation.
Fact 26. Then they checked people. Patients with spinal cord injuries, chronically immobile and famously not at elevated clot risk, showed the same low levels. So did 10 healthy volunteers after 27 days of bed rest in a spaceflight simulation. Fact 27. That matters because current anticoagulant drugs cut clotting by making bleeding more dangerous. The bear's route seems not to. We know because hibernating females give birth in the den, at the bottom of that protein crash, without bleeding to death. Fact 28. A bear enters the den obese and insulin resistant, a state that in a person is the doorway to type 2 diabetes, and reverses it completely in spring. Every year for 20 or 30 years with no damage. Fact 29. Researchers at Washington State University's Bear Center, the only facility of its kind, worked with 11 captive grizzlies and narrowed the switch down to 8 proteins, published in iScience in 2022. All 8 have human equivalents. They are not exotic bear genes.
Fact 30. A caution. Because this field has a scar. A widely reported 2014 paper on grizzly insulin in cell metabolism was retracted the following year. The findings survived, the proposed mechanism did not. Anyone claiming bears have already cured diabetes is a decade ahead of the evidence. Fact 31. 2 more items for the list. Brown bears carry blood lipid levels during hibernation that would alarm any cardiologist, and a 2012 study found they appear resistant to atherosclerosis regardless. Their arteries do not fur up. Fact 32. And wounds close. Paul Iaizo's team at the University of Minnesota made small surgical wounds in wild black bears at the start of denning and looked again months later. The injuries had resolved almost completely, with reduced scarring and no infection, at 30 to 35 degrees, with no food, water, or protein coming in. Fact 33. Each of those systems is a separate multi-billion-dollar problem in human medicine. Osteoporosis, muscle wasting, kidney failure, thrombosis, insulin resistance, chronic wounds. The bear solves all 6 at once, in a cave, asleep. Fact 34. Space agencies have been paying attention for years because a body that can lie still for 6 months without degrading is exactly what a crew on a multi-year flight would need. Fact 35. The reason none of this is a pill yet is mundane. You cannot breed 100 bears in a lab and run them through a protocol. Nearly every finding here rests on a handful of animals, darted in the wild or housed in one of 2 research centers. The body gets the research funding. The brain sitting on top of it spent a century being ignored. Fact 36. Bears have the largest brain relative to body size of any carnivore. Bigger, proportionally, than a wolf, a lion, or a hyena. Fact 37. Almost nobody tested what it does. Comparative psychology was built around social animals, primates, dolphins, crows, while bears are solitary, dangerous, and hard to keep. They fell through the gap. Fact 38. In 2012, Jennifer Vonk and Michael Barron put 3 black bears in front of a touch screen and asked them to compare arrays of dots. They scored above chance even when dot number conflicted with the area covered, meaning they tracked quantity itself, not which blob looked bigger. Fact 39. The headline became Bears Can Count, and the actual result is more interesting than that. 1 bear reliably picked the larger array. 2 preferred the smaller one. They all perceived the quantity. What each individual chose to do about it differed, which is a finding the summaries throw away. Fact 40. Vonk's lab kept going. Black bears learned to sort photographs into categories as abstract as animal versus not an animal. And 1 bear, Migwan, showed on a screen that she preferred grapes to beets, treating images as standing for real things. Fact 41. In July 2010, in Glacier Bay, Alaska, whale researcher Volker Dickey watched a young brown bear pick a barnacle-encrusted rock off the seafloor, turn it over in its paws, and scrub its own face and neck with it. It dropped that rock, hunted for another, and repeated the whole sequence 3 times. Fact 42. Published in Animal Cognition, that was the first recorded tool use by a wild brown bear, and at the time only the 4th non-primate mammal known to use tools. The bear was not selecting any rock. It was selecting rough ones. Fact 43. Since then, camera traps have caught 6 wild American black bears using tools on 19 separate occasions. The behavior was not rare. Nobody had been filming. Fact 44. There is a measurement of bear intelligence nobody set out to make. For a food container to be certified bear-resistant in the United States, live grizzlies at one of 2 approved facilities must fail to open it across 60 minutes of sustained contact. Fact 45.
When live bear testing replaced the old drop weight machines, the pass rate collapsed to about 10%. Manufacturers had no idea how strong, how motivated, or how methodical the animals were. Backpacking canisters still pass at only around 30%. Fact 46. Bears learn a food source once and return to that orchard, dumpster, or campground for years. Cubs inherit the map from their mothers, which is why one habituated female can produce generations of problem bears. A mind like that is bolted inside a machine most people badly misjudge. Fact 47. Bears are plantigrade. They put the whole sole of the foot flat on the ground and walk on it, as we do, while dogs and cats walk on their toes. A bear's hind footprint in mud looks unnervingly like a barefoot human's. Fact 48. It is also why a bear stands up so easily. Standing is not a threat display. It is an animal lifting its nose to sample the air and see further, and it usually means curiosity, not aggression. Fact 49. The 5 claws on each paw do not retract. A bear cannot sheathe them, so they are permanently blunted by walking, which is one reason black bears climb well, and adult grizzlies mostly do not. Fact 50. Nothing that shape should be fast. A brown bear runs at around 50 kilometers an hour, which is faster than any human who has ever lived, and it does it uphill, over rock, weighing as much as 4 people. Fact 51. The nose is the real instrument, and here the popular numbers deserve scrutiny. You will read everywhere that a bear smells 2,100 times better than a human. Chase that figure, and it dissolves into articles quoting each other, with no original measurement anywhere underneath. Fact 52. The hard numbers are impressive enough. Bears carry roughly 1,100 working olfactory receptor genes against about 400 in us, and the scent-detecting tissue in a black bear's nose covers 300 to 500 square centimeters, against about 150 in a bloodhound. Fact 53. The olfactory bulb, the brain region that processes all of it, is around 5 times larger than ours in an animal whose whole brain is about a third the size. A bear's world is assembled out of smell the way ours is assembled out of light. Fact 54. Their eyesight is not the joke it is made out to be. Bears see roughly as well as we do at short range and have color vision, useful for an animal whose living depends on judging which berries are ripe. Fact 55.
Their hearing runs well into the ultrasonic, above anything we register. Between that, the eyes and the nose, a bear almost always detects a person long before the person detects the bear, and quietly leaves. Fact 56. Bears swim seriously. Polar bears are classified as marine mammals, and one female tracked by the United States Geological Survey swam continuously for 232 hours, covering 687 kilometers of open water at 2 to 6 degrees Celsius. Fact 57. She lost around 22% of her body weight doing it, and her yearling cub did not survive. That swim was not a display of strength. It was an animal crossing a stretch of sea that used to be ice. Fact 58. The closest living relatives of bears are not dogs. They are the pinnipeds, seals, sea lions, and walruses. The bear family and the seal family split from a common ancestor, which makes a polar bear's return to the water less of a surprise.
All that hardware, and what most bears mostly do with it, is pick fruit. Fact 59. 7 of the 8 bear species are omnivores, and most of them lean heavily vegetarian. A brown bear's year is largely grasses, sedges, roots, tubers, and berries, with meat as an opportunity rather than a plan. Fact 60. Yellowstone grizzlies spend part of the summer above the tree line turning over rocks to eat army cutworm moths, so rich in fat that a bear can take in tens of thousands in a day. A grizzly's key high-altitude food is a moth. Fact 61. Where salmon run, the arithmetic changes completely. A brown bear at Katmai can put away over 50 kilograms of fish in a day, and when fish are plentiful will strip out only the brain, skin, and eggs, the fattiest parts, and leave the rest. Fact 62. Those discarded carcasses fertilize the forest. Nitrogen that came out of the North Pacific ends up measurably inside streamside spruce and willow.
Coastal forests are partly built from fish that bears carried uphill. Fact 63. The giant panda is a bear that quit meat entirely. Bamboo makes up about 99% of its diet, and it will spend 14 hours a day eating it. Fact 64. It never rebuilt the plumbing to match. A panda still has the short, simple digestive tract of a carnivore, and the gut bacteria of one, which is why it must eat such quantities of a food it digests badly. Fact 65. The panda's genome carries the receipt. Its umami taste receptor gene, the one that makes meat taste of meat, is broken, a pseudogene, and geneticists estimate it stopped working around 4 million years ago, in step with the switch to bamboo. Fact 66. The famous panda thumb is not a thumb. It is an enlarged wrist bone, the radial sesamoid, pressed into service as an opposable grip for holding bamboo stems. Evolution had no spare digit available, and improvised with the toolbox it had.
Fact 67. The sloth bear went the other way and specialized in insects. It can close its nostrils at will, has a gap in its front teeth, and vacuums termites out of a broken mound with a suction loud enough to hear from a distance. Fact 68. It is also the only bear that carries its cubs on its back, ferrying them through country full of tigers and leopards. Baloo, in Kipling's Jungle Book, was a sloth bear, not the brown bear the films keep drawing. Fact 69. The sun bear is the smallest of the 8, often under 50 kilograms, with a tongue reaching 25 centimeters to pull honey and grubs out of hollow trees. Its loose neck skin lets it twist round and bite when something bigger grabs it. 8 species split the job of being a bear between them, and some of them went to very strange places to do it. Fact 70. Those 8 fall into 3 groups, and one of them contains a single animal. The giant panda branched off around 19 million years ago and is the most genetically distant bear alive, which is why it took genetics to settle the argument about whether it was a bear at all. Fact 71. The spectacled bear of the Andes is the only bear in South America and the last survivor of the short-faced bear lineage. Every individual has a different pattern of pale rings around its eyes. It is also the animal Paddington was supposed to be. Fact 72. Its extinct relatives were monstrous. A skeleton dug up during hospital construction in La Plata, Argentina, belonged to Arctotherium angustidens, the largest bear ever found, estimated at 1,600 to 1,750 kilograms and over 3 meters standing. Fact 73. Even that animal was probably not the pure killing machine the newspaper illustrations gave it. Analysis of its skull and jaws put its diet closer to an omnivore's than a specialist predator's. Being enormous and eating salad are not mutually exclusive in bears. Fact 74. The European cave bear, which shared caves with our ancestors and vanished around 24,000 years ago, was also mostly a plant eater. We have hundreds of thousands of its bones because they died where they slept. Fact 75. The polar bear is an infant by evolutionary standards, having emerged from a brown bear ancestor somewhere between 150,000 and 600,000 years ago. The Arctic's apex predator is a recently redecorated grizzly. Fact 76. Recent enough that the two still interbreed, producing fertile hybrids that biologists nickname Growler or Pizzly bears. Genetics tells us it has happened repeatedly, in both directions, for a very long time. Fact 77. The polar bear is the only bear classified as a marine mammal, sitting in the same legal and biological category as seals and whales rather than with the land carnivores. Fact 78. It is also not white. The guard hairs are hollow and completely colorless, scattering light the way crushed ice does, and the skin underneath is black. Fact 79. You may have heard those hairs described as fiber optic cables piping sunlight down to the skin. Physicist Daniel Kuhn at St. Lawrence University measured it and found under 0.1% of red light traveling an inch down a hair. Fact 80. Proof the hollow core is just air comes from zoos. Polar bears in San Diego, Fresno, and Cologne have turned visibly green because algae colonized the empty channels inside their hairs and scattered green light instead of white. Every one of those species begins the same way. In the dark, in midwinter, from a mother who is technically asleep. Fact 81. Bears mate in spring or early summer, and then the pregnancy pauses. The fertilized embryo floats free for months without implanting, a process called embryonic diapause, waiting on a decision her body has not made yet. Fact 82. That decision is an audit. If the female has laid down enough fat by late autumn, the embryo implants and develops. If she has not, it is quietly reabsorbed and there are no cubs. Bear reproduction is settled by a fat measurement, not by mating. Fact 83. Actual development takes only around 60 days. Cubs are born in January, deep in the den, weighing under 0.5 kilogram, blind, toothless, and nearly hairless, roughly the size of a squirrel. Fact 84. They are born into a mother who is not eating or drinking, and she nurses them on milk that is around 1/3 pure fat. She is converting her own body directly into her offspring, in the dark, for months. Fact 85. They come out in April weighing several kilograms, and roughly half of them will not see their first birthday. Fact 86. A large share of that mortality is other bears. Adult males kill cubs that are not theirs, which brings the mother back into breeding condition within days instead of 2 years. In the Swedish study population, around 1/3 of all cubs die this way during the mating season. Fact 87. So the mothers found a defense, and it is us. Sam Steyert's team tracked 30 collared females in Sweden from 2005 to 2012 for proceedings of the Royal Society B.
Mothers that raised their cubs successfully stayed a median of 783 meters from human settlement. Those that lost their litters kept much further away. Fact 88. Successful mothers also chose the thickest vegetation they could find while doing it, staying close enough to people to borrow the protection without being noticed. Adult males avoid human infrastructure, so the females park their families inside it. Fact 89. And it is seasonal. Once the mating season ends and the hunting season begins, those same females move away from people again. They are not tame. They are using us, on a schedule, and dropping us the moment we become the greater threat. Fact 90. A cub then spends between 18 months and 2.5 years with her, learning which slopes hold berries in July and which streams hold fish in September. Almost everything an adult bear knows about staying alive, it learned from its mother.
Which leaves the relationship that decides whether any of this continues. Ours. Fact 91. North America holds around 750,000 black bears, and on average they kill fewer than one person a year across the whole continent. Since the 1700s, all bear species combined account for roughly 180 deaths there. Fact 92. When Stephen Herrero's team examined 92 black bear attacks, about half involved a dog off the leash. A significant share of bear attacks begin with someone's pet running at a bear and then running back to its owner with the bear following. Fact 93. Field data comparing outcomes found bear spray stopped aggressive encounters around 92% of the time, against roughly 67% for firearms. A canister beats a rifle, mostly because it does not require a perfect shot at a charging animal. Fact 94. The advice everybody repeats is half wrong and dangerous. Playing dead applies to a defensive brown bear. Do it with a black bear or a polar bear, which almost never attack defensively, and you have made yourself easy. Fact 95. The line about a fed bear being a dead bear is not a slogan. A bear that learns to associate people with calories becomes bold, then a public safety problem, then a corpse. It pays for our carelessness with its life. Fact 96. Estimates put somewhere between 10,000 and 20,000 bears in cages on biofarms across Asia, mostly Asiatic black bears, tapped through surgical fistulas or catheters for the ursodeoxycholic acid in their bile. Fact 97. That acid is genuinely useful medicine for certain liver and gallbladder conditions. It has also been manufactured synthetically since the 1950s, and there are dozens of herbal alternatives. The cages are not a medical necessity. They are a habit. Fact 98. Some of it is being undone. Vietnam's farmed bear population has fallen from over 4,000 to roughly 1,000, and sanctuaries now hold rescued animals whose teeth and claws the bars destroyed. Fact 99. And bears come back when we let them. Yellowstone's grizzly population has roughly tripled since its listing as endangered in the mid-1970s, and brown bears now number over 200,000 worldwide, around 15,000 of them in European countries that spent centuries exterminating them. Fact 100. 6 of the 8 bear species are still listed as vulnerable. The bear has spent every winter of its existence quietly performing procedures our finest hospitals cannot reproduce, and we have spent ours arguing about whether it is dangerous. The valuable part of this animal was never the part we were afraid of. 2 versions of the bear get handed to you as a child. One is on the warning sign, upright, snarling, a set of teeth with a body attached. The other is on the bed, stitched together, soft, waiting to be hugged. They look like opposites. They are the same mistake twice, because both are about what the bear looks like to a human being, and neither has anything to do with what it is. What it is the best engineered mammal on land. An animal that fasts for half a year and comes out with its skeleton intact, that rebuilds muscle out of its own waste, that turns off its clotting system without bleeding to death and its insulin response without becoming diabetic, that heals surgical wounds while asleep and starving in a cold hole in the ground. Every one of those is a hospital ward somewhere. Every one is being studied, slowly and expensively, from the blood of a few dozen animals in Sweden, Alaska, and Washington state, because they are the only working example we have. The strangest part is the timing.
We are taking bear physiology apart, looking for treatments at precisely the moment we are taking bear habitat apart, and it is entirely possible to lose a species while its blood sits in a freezer, waiting to be understood. We managed to be frightened of this animal for 40,000 years, which turns out to have been the least interesting response available. So here is what I want from you. If you could license one piece of this animal's body for your own, which would you take? The bones that do not thin, the muscles that do not waste, the blood that will not clot, or the metabolism that switches diabetes off every April? Pick one and say why underneath, because I suspect those answers will reveal more about the commenters than about the bears. And if you would rather have the version of an animal that arrives with study names and dates attached, subscribing takes a second and tells me to keep making them. There is another badly misread animal coming next.